First contact's price. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the viewport of the ESS Vigilant, watching New Eden burn. The Valkyrie warships hung in high orbit like ethereal predators, their crystalline hulls refracting starlight as they methodically reduced humanity's most distant colony to ash. Their energy weapons carved patterns of destruction across the planet's surface with mechanical precision, each blast calculated to maximize devastation. Final evacuation numbers. Her XO, Commander James Rivera, reported from behind her. His voice carried the weight of failure they all felt. We got 60% of the colonists out before they cut off our escape corridors. 8 million people still planet-side. Sarah's fingers curled into fists, her nails biting into her palms. The Vigilant was humanity's most advanced warship, the pride of the Earth Space Force. Against the Valkyrie dreadnoughts, it might as well have been a rowboat facing a tsunami. Their first and only engagement had lasted less than 3 minutes before Sarah was forced to retreat or lose her entire ship. Play back the combat footage again, she ordered, turning from the viewport. Focus on their shield harmonics during our initial missile barrage. The holographic display flickered to life, showing the Vigilant's desperate attack run. Their missiles, carrying enough firepower to level a small city, had splashed harmlessly against the Valkyrie shields. But something about the way the shields had responded nagged at Sarah's tactical instincts. There, she pointed as the footage played. See how their shields ripple. It's not just deflecting our attacks, it's absorbing them, converting the energy somehow. Rivera leaned closer to the display. That's why our kinetic weapons were useless. They're not just blocking the impact, they're feeding off it. And look at their formation. Sarah continued, her mind racing. Perfect geometric patterns, maintained even under fire. No deviation, no adaptation. It's beautiful, but it's rigid. She pulled up the sensor data from their brief engagement. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours, but they fight like machines. No improvisation, no creativity. That's not much comfort to the people down there, Rivera said quietly. Sarah's jaw tightened. No, but it might be the key to saving everyone else. Send all our combat data to Earth Command, Priority Channel, and get me a secure line to Admiral Wong. I have an idea that might sound crazy, but... She glanced back at the burning planet. We need to stop thinking about matching their technology. We need to start thinking about how to make their perfection work against them. The Vigilant's retreat from New Eden marked humanity's brutal introduction to galactic civilization. The Valkyrie Empire had encountered dozens of emerging spacefaring species over their 1,000-year expansion. All had either submitted to vassalage or been eradicated. They expected humanity to choose one of these traditional paths. They didn't expect Sarah Chen to spend the 18-day journey back to Earth developing the foundation of what would become known as chaos theory warfare. The Valkyrie's technological superiority was built on precision, predictability, and perfect execution. Their shields converted incoming energy to strengthen themselves. Their formations maximized coverage and firepower. Their targeting systems calculated trajectories to 12 decimal places. But that's exactly their weakness, Sarah explained to the hastily assembled War Council 2 weeks later. The room was filled with humanity's top military minds, all grappling with the reality of facing an enemy that could swat aside their strongest weapons like insects. She pulled up the holographic combat footage again. The Valkyrie have optimized their entire approach to warfare. But in doing so, they've lost the ability to handle the unexpected, the irrational, the chaotic. They've forgotten that sometimes the perfect solution isn't the best solution. Admiral Wong leaned forward, his weathered face intense. What are you suggesting, Captain? We can't beat them with conventional tactics, Sarah said. But maybe we can beat them with unconventional ones. Their shields absorb energy. Let's overload them with random frequency patterns they can't adapt to. Their formations are perfect. Let's make that perfection a liability by attacking from seemingly irrational vectors. They fight like machines. Let's remind them why organic minds still have advantages over artificial ones. The next 6 months saw the fastest military reorganization in human history. Every ship in the Earth Space Force was retrofitted with what engineers called chaos drives, propulsion systems designed to produce erratic, unpredictable movement patterns while maintaining combat effectiveness. Traditional military formations were abandoned in favor of what looked like random swarm behavior, but actually followed complex, organic patterns that only human minds could properly anticipate. Sarah watched the changes from the bridge of the Vigilant, now equipped with experimental systems that would have been considered too unstable for combat use just months ago. The ship hummed with barely contained energy, like a predator straining at the leash. "The Valkyrie will return," she told her crew during their final briefing before taking up their patrol position. "They think they've seen what humanity is capable of. They think they know our limitations, but they don't understand what makes us different from every other species they've conquered. We don't just adapt, we thrive on chaos, and we're about to show them exactly what that means." As if in answer to her words, the long-range sensors lit up with multiple contacts. The Valkyrie had returned, their crystalline ships gleaming with the same cold perfection. But this time, humanity was ready to fight in ways their enemy couldn't possibly predict. Sarah allowed herself a grim smile as she gave the order to engage. New Eden had been lost, but its lessons would not be forgotten. The galaxy was about to learn why testing humanity's resolve was a dangerous mistake. The neural edge. Dr. Maya Patel had always been considered brilliant but unstable by her colleagues at the Earth Defense Research Division. Her theories about direct neural interfaces between human consciousness and quantum computers had been dismissed as too dangerous, too experimental. But in the wake of New Eden's fall, too dangerous had taken on a different meaning. The human brain processes information in ways that AI can't replicate, she explained to Captain Chen, who had been reassigned to oversee the implementation of her research. They stood in her laboratory, surrounded by prototype neural interfaces and holographic displays showing synaptic patterns. "We don't think linearly. We make intuitive leaps. We process patterns subconsciously. We dream." Sarah examined one of the neural interfaces, a delicate web of quantum filaments designed to interface directly with a pilot's nervous system. "And you think we can use that to control our ships more effectively?" Maya's eyes lit up with fierce intensity. "Not just control them. Become them. The Valkyrie's ships are perfectly engineered machines, but they're still tools being operated by their crews. What if our ships could become extensions of their pilot's consciousness? Every reaction immediate, every movement guided by both instinct and intention." The first tests were catastrophic. 3 pilots suffered neural feedback that left them comatose. But Maya refused to give up, working obsessively to refine the interface. Sarah stayed with her, understanding that this might be humanity's best chance at survival. "The problem isn't the technology," Maya announced one night, after their 15th failed attempt. She had been awake for nearly 72 hours, sustained by stimulants and determination. "It's our approach. We're trying to make the human mind adapt to the machine. We need to make the machine adapt to us." The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Lieutenant Aidan O'Connor, a former fighter pilot who had lost both legs in the New Eden evacuation, volunteered for the next test. "I've already learned to adapt to synthetic limbs," he argued. "Maybe that's the perspective you need." Aidan's neural patterns showed something fascinating. His brain had already developed pathways for integrating artificial systems into its body awareness. Maya modified the interface to build on this natural adaptability, and for the first time, the merger worked. In the simulation chamber, Aidan's consciousness expanded into the ship's systems. He didn't just control the vessel, he became it. Its sensors became his senses, its hull his skin, its weapons an extension of his will. And most importantly, his human intuition remained intact, allowing him to make decisions at speeds no AI could match. "It's like learning to fly all over again," he reported, his voice filled with wonder. "But instead of sitting in a cockpit, I am the ship. I can feel everything. Spatial relationships, energy flows, gravitational forces, and it all makes sense at a gut level. The program expanded rapidly. They discovered that pilots with neural interfaces could coordinate in ways that defied traditional military doctrine. 2 or more linked pilots could share sensory information and tactical insights instantly, creating a form of combat awareness that the Valkyrie's rigid command structures couldn't match. Sarah watched from the control room as a squadron of neural-linked fighters performed maneuvers that should have been impossible. They moved like a flock of birds, each pilot instantaneously responding to the other's movements while maintaining their own initiative. "This is how we beat them," she said to Maya, who was monitoring the pilot's neural patterns. "Not with better technology, but by changing the fundamental nature of space combat. The Valkyrie think in terms of ships and crews. We're creating something entirely new, a fusion of human consciousness and machine capability." Maya nodded, her exhaustion evident but her eyes bright with triumph. The neural interface does more than just speed up reaction times. It allows our pilots to perceive space combat in ways the Valkyrie can't comprehend. They see patterns we can't even describe in words, develop strategies that look like chaos, but are actually expressions of human intuition operating at a quantum level. The project's success brought rapid changes to Earth's defense strategy. Traditional military vessels were retrofitted with neural interface systems. Training programs were developed to help pilots adapt to their new capabilities. The Earth Space Force was becoming something unprecedented, a fleet where ships weren't just crewed by humans, but were genuine extensions of human consciousness. "We're not just fighting to survive anymore," Sarah told her crews during their neural integration training. "We're evolving. The Valkyrie think they've perfected space warfare, but they've actually stagnated. They'd forgotten that true perfection isn't about flawless execution of known patterns. It's about the ability to create new patterns, to think in ways that have never been thought before." As reports came in of Valkyrie fleets moving toward other human colonies, Earth prepared to unveil its new defense doctrine. The neural-linked ships were designated as the first wave of defenders, their pilots ready to demonstrate that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in its technology, but in its ability to transcend traditional limitations. Maya and Sarah stood together in the observation dome, watching the neural-linked fighters perform their final training exercises. The ships moved with impossible grace, their maneuvers expressing both the precision of machines and the creativity of human consciousness. "They're beautiful," Maya whispered, watching the dance of vessels that represented her life's work. Sarah nodded, but her mind was already on the battles to come. "They're more than beautiful. They're humanity's answer to an empire that thought perfect technology was enough to guarantee victory. The Valkyrie are about to learn that true advancement isn't about reaching perfection. It's about never stopping to evolve." Swarm intelligence. Commander Zara Hassan stood in the virtual command space, her consciousness expanded through the neural interface to encompass the 100 small ships under her command. Each vessel was barely a tenth the size of a Valkyrie cruiser, but together they formed something unprecedented in the history of space warfare. A true battle swarm guided by a networked human consciousness. "Strike Group Sigma. Commence emergence pattern," she ordered, her thoughts rippling through the neural network to the other pilots. Around her, the swarm responded instantly, the small ships flowing like mercury through space, breaking apart and reforming in fluid patterns that no conventional fleet could match. Admiral Wong's holographic presence materialized beside her in the command space. "Impressive," he said, watching the swarm's movements. "But can they stand up to Valkyrie firepower?" "Sir, that's exactly what they're designed for," Zora replied, directing her ships through another series of formations. "The Valkyrie rely on massive ships with predictable firing solutions. Our swarm vessels are too small and fast to target effectively, especially when moving in chaos patterns guided by linked human minds." The development of the swarm doctrine had been controversial. Traditional military thinking favored larger ships with heavy armor and shields, But Dr. Patel's neural interface technology had opened new possibilities, and Captain Chen's chaos theory warfare had shown the value of unpredictability. Zara's contribution had been to combine these innovations with inspiration from nature. Look at how schools of fish confuse predators, she had argued in the strategy sessions. How flocks of birds move as one while maintaining individual initiative. That's what we need, not to match the Valkyrie ship for ship, but to overwhelm them with complexity they can't process. Each swarm vessel was equipped with a scaled-down version of the neural interface system, allowing its pilot to function as part of a greater whole while maintaining individual tactical freedom. The ships themselves were marvels of minimalist engineering. All engine, basic shields, and a single high-powered weapon system. Plotting simultaneous firing solutions, Zara announced, her consciousness expanding to coordinate the swarm's attack run on the training targets. The 100 ships moved in perfect synchronization, each one's trajectory calculated to support and enhance the other's effectiveness. The results exceeded even the optimistic projections. The swarm's energy weapons, while individually weaker than Valkyrie weapons, combined into patterns that overloaded shield systems through sheer complexity. No computer could calculate optimal defenses against an attack that changed patterns constantly, guided by networked human intuition. The real advantage isn't just tactical, Zora explained during the post-exercise briefing. Her neural interface allowed her to project her thoughts directly into the command center's holographic display, showing how the swarm's movements followed patterns that seemed random, but were actually expressions of complex human strategic thinking. The Valkyrie's entire military doctrine is based on overwhelming force applied with perfect precision. But against a swarm, precision becomes a weakness. You can't target what you can't predict, and you can't predict what evolves constantly. Admiral Wong nodded slowly. And the neural networking prevents the coordination problems that would normally make this kind of swarm tactics impossible. Exactly, sir. Each pilot maintains individual initiative while being part of a greater whole. We think and move as one, but with the flexibility that only human consciousness can provide. The implications went beyond just military applications. The swarm technology represented a new form of human coordination, a way for multiple consciousness to work together while maintaining individuality. It was another step in humanity's forced evolution under the pressure of Valkyrie aggression. Training expanded rapidly as more pilots were recruited for the swarm program. They discovered that certain personalities were better suited for swarm integration, people who could think independently while maintaining strong group awareness. Dancers, team athletes, and musicians often showed particular aptitude for the neural networking required. The key is finding the balance, Zora told her trainees. Too much individual initiative breaks the swarm cohesion. Too little makes us predictable. We need to function like jazz musicians, everyone playing their own part while contributing to a greater harmony. The swarm vessels were deployed in secret to defensive positions around Earth's remaining colonies. Traditional capital ships were retrofitted to serve as carrier platforms, each one capable of launching and supporting a full battle swarm. The stage was set for a new kind of space warfare, one that would challenge the Valkyrie's fundamental assumptions about military power. 3 months after the swarm program went operational, long-range sensors detected a massive Valkyrie fleet approaching the Proxima Centauri colony. Their ships moved in their characteristic perfect formation, energy weapons charged and ready to repeat the devastation of New Eden. What they didn't know was that Zora's strike group Sigma was waiting for them, 100 neural-linked pilots ready to demonstrate humanity's response to overwhelming force. As she gave the order to deploy, Zara felt the familiar expansion of consciousness as she joined with her swarm. Remember, she broadcast to her pilots through the neural network, we're not just fighting to protect this colony. We're showing the galaxy that humanity's greatest strength isn't in our technology or our numbers, but in our ability to work together in ways no one has ever imagined before. The swarm emerged from hiding, a cloud of small ships moving with organic fluidity that belied their mechanical nature. The Velkari were about to learn that sometimes the most effective response to superior force isn't to match it, but to change the fundamental nature of the engagement. As her ships moved into attack position, Zora allowed herself a moment of fierce pride. The Velkari had forced humanity to evolve, but they hadn't anticipated just how far that evolution would go. The battle for Proxima Centauri would mark the debut of a new era in space warfare, one where the rigid perfection of machine logic would face the adaptive complexity of networked human consciousness. Breaking formation. The Velkari fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect attack formation, their crystalline ships arranged in the same precise geometric patterns that had spelled doom for New Eden. 30 capital ships, each one capable of reducing a continent to ash, surrounded by 100 smaller escort vessels, their energy weapons charged with characteristic efficiency, preparing to demonstrate once again why the Velkari Empire had dominated galactic warfare for centuries. What they saw instead was chaos. Commander Zara Hassan's swarm struck first, 100 small ships moving in patterns that seemed to defy physics. Through the neural network, she felt the collective focus of her pilots, their shared consciousness creating battle formations that evolved faster than any computer could analyze. Strike pattern Epsilon. She broadcast through the neural link, her thought carrying not just the command, but the intuitive understanding of how to execute it. The swarm split into 5 groups, each one attacking from a different vector, their movements synchronized yet unpredictable. The Velkari responded with textbook precision, their ships maintaining perfect spacing as they launched a coordinated defense. But their targeting computers struggled to lock onto vessels that never moved in straight lines, that changed direction in ways that made sense only to the networked human minds controlling them. In the virtual command space, Captain Sarah Chen watched the battle unfold alongside Admiral Wang. Her chaos theory warfare was being put to its ultimate test, combined with Maya's neural interface technology and Zora's swarm tactics. Look at their response times, Sarah pointed out, highlighting the Velkari fleet's movements. They're still fighting by the book, trying to establish optimal firing solutions against each threat. But our swarm doesn't present discrete threats. It's a constantly evolving challenge that can't be reduced to mathematical formulas. The first Velkari escort ship fell when 3 swarm vessels executed a converging attack that overwhelmed its shields through sheer unpredictability. Their smaller weapons, firing in patterns guided by human intuition rather than computer calculation, created resonance cascades that the Velkari's defensive systems couldn't compensate for. Second wave, commence operation, Zora commanded. From behind Proxima Centauri's largest moon, Earth's modified capital ships emerged. Each one had been retrofitted with neural interface systems, their captains linked to their vessels just as intimately as the swarm pilots. The Velkari fleet split its attention, adjusting their formation to deal with the new threat. It was exactly what Zara had been waiting for. All units, execute Starburst protocol. Through the neural network, she felt her pilots' fierce joy as they implemented the maneuver they'd practiced countless times. The swarm exploded outward in all directions simultaneously, each ship moving along a different vector, but all part of a greater pattern. To the Velkari sensors, it must have looked like pure randomness. But every movement was precisely calculated to create gaps in their perfect formation. Their crystalline hulls, Maya had explained during the strategy sessions, they're not just aesthetic. They channel energy in specific ways, strengthen their shields through geometric alignment. But that same crystalline structure makes them vulnerable to asymmetric stress patterns. The theory proved correct as Zora's swarm danced through the gaps in the Velkari formation, their apparently chaotic movements actually creating interference patterns that disrupted the enemy's shield harmonics. Small weapons fire that should have been easily deflected instead created cascading failures in their defensive systems. A Velkari capital ship, its shields compromised, took a direct hit from one of Earth's modified destroyers. The crystalline hull shattered spectacularly, its perfect geometric patterns proving catastrophically vulnerable to attacks it hadn't been designed to withstand. They're trying to adapt, Sarah observed, watching the Valkyrie fleet's movements. But their whole command structure is based on executing pre-planned responses. They can't match our tactical flexibility. The battle reached its turning point when 3 swarm groups executed a synchronized attack on the Valkyrie flagship. Their movements looked random, but were actually precisely coordinated through the neural network, each ship's actions enhancing the effectiveness of the others. The flagship's advanced shields, designed to withstand concentrated energy attacks, proved vulnerable to the swarm's distributed assault. As their flagship's crystalline hull began to crack, the Valkyrie did something unprecedented in their 1,000-year history of warfare. They retreated in disorder. Their perfect formation broke apart as ships attempted individual evasive maneuvers, but this only made them more vulnerable to the swarm's coordinated attacks. "Let them go," Admiral Wong ordered as the Valkyrie fleet flowed into hyperspace. "We've accomplished our objective. Proxima Centauri is safe, and more importantly, we've shown them that their technological superiority isn't absolute." In the aftermath of the battle, Zera led her swarm in a victory formation above the colony they'd saved. Through the neural network, she felt the mixture of exhaustion and triumph from her pilots. They had proven that humanity's approach to warfare, embracing chaos, leveraging neural interfaces, fighting as a coordinated yet individually adaptive force, could overcome even the most advanced enemy technology. "The Valkyrie will be back," Sarah said during the debriefing. "But they'll have to completely rethink their approach to warfare. Their perfect formations and predictable tactics aren't just ineffective against us, they're actually a liability." Admiral Wong nodded. "And that's perhaps our greatest victory today. We haven't just defeated a Valkyrie fleet, we've challenged their fundamental assumptions about how space combat works. They'll have to either adapt or accept that their era of military dominance is over." As the debriefing concluded, Zera remained in neural contact with her swarm, feeling the subtle movements of her ships as they maintained their defensive positions around the colony. The battle had proven something she had always believed, that human consciousness, properly networked and empowered, could achieve things that no amount of pure technological advancement could match. The Valkyrie thought they had perfected warfare. She transmitted to her pilots, "We showed them that perfection without adaptability is just stagnation. They may have superior technology, but we have something they've forgotten how to use: the infinite creativity of the human mind." Evolution's children. The Grand Assembly of the Valkyrie Empire had not been convened in full session for over 3 centuries. Yet now, 6 months after the Battle of Proxima Centauri, the crystalline chamber was filled with the Empire's highest authorities. Their normally perfect formations were noticeably disrupted, an unconscious echo of how humanity had shattered their military doctrine. Through encrypted quantum channels, Captain Sarah Chen watched the proceedings alongside Admiral Wong and Dr. Maya Patil. The Valkyrie had invited Earth to send representatives, a gesture unprecedented in their history of dealing with emerging species. "The humans do not merely fight differently," the Valkyrie High Commander addressed the assembly, his crystalline armor unable to hide his agitation. "They have fundamentally changed the nature of space combat itself. Our perfection has become our weakness against their controlled chaos." In the months following their defeat at Proxima Centauri, the Valkyrie had attempted to adapt their tactics. They'd tried to make their formations less predictable, to vary their attack patterns. But centuries of rigid military doctrine couldn't be unlearned quickly, and their attempts at unpredictability were still based on mathematical formulas that human neural networks could anticipate and counter. "It's not just about military technology anymore," Maya observed, watching the Valkyrie leaders debate. "We forced them to confront the limitations of their entire approach to advancement. They've spent centuries perfecting what they already knew instead of exploring new possibilities." The impact of humanity's innovations had spread far beyond direct combat. Other species that had been subjugated by the Valkyrie began studying Earth's neural interface technology and swarm tactics. More importantly, they started questioning the assumption that technological superiority alone determined a civilization's worth. Commander Zura Hassan, attending the assembly in person with a small contingent of swarm pilots, stood to address the Valkyrie. Through her neural interface, she shared the experience with her team back in Earth space, allowing them to see and feel this historic moment. The Valkyrie Empire has long believed that advancement means reaching perfection. She began, her words translated by the chamber systems. But we humans have learned through our entire history that true advancement comes from continuous adaptation. Perfection is not a destination. It's a journey that never ends. To demonstrate her point, she activated her neural interface, allowing her consciousness to merge with those of her pilots scattered across Earth space. The Valkyrie assembly watched in fascination as holographic displays showed the swarm executing maneuvers that seemed to defy their understanding of fleet coordination. "What you see is not chaos," Zora continued. "It's a higher form of order, one that emerges from the combination of individual initiative and collective purpose. Each pilot thinks and acts independently, while contributing to patterns that no single mind could create." The implications extended far beyond military applications. Earth's neural interface technology was already being adapted for civilian use, allowing teams of scientists to share insights directly, enabling artists to collaborate on levels previously unimaginable, even helping medical teams work together with unprecedented coordination. The Valkyrie Empire stands at a crossroads. Admiral Wong addressed the assembly. "You can continue to pursue perfection through control and predictability, or you can join us in exploring the endless possibilities that come from embracing adaptation and change." The response surprised everyone. The Valkyrie High Council, after hours of deliberation, proposed not just peace with Earth, but a revolutionary change in how they approached their relationship with other species. They recognized that humanity's innovations had demonstrated the limitations of their philosophical approach to advancement. Perhaps, the High Commander concluded, "It is we who are the emerging species. We have mastered the physics of space travel, the engineering of weapons, the mathematics of warfare. But you humans have mastered something far more important, the art of continuous evolution." In the years that followed, the galaxy underwent a transformation. The Valkyrie Empire gradually reformed into a cooperative alliance of species, each contributing their unique perspectives and approaches to advancement. Earth's neural interface technology and swarm coordination principles were adapted for peaceful purposes, creating new forms of cooperation and understanding between different civilizations. Sarah Chen, promoted to admiral, often reflected on how the threat of extinction had driven humanity to transcend its limitations. The neural interfaces that had started as a military necessity became tools for expanding human consciousness and cooperation. The chaos theory warfare that had been developed to counter Valkyrie precision evolved into new ways of thinking about complex problems. "We didn't just change how we fight," she told a class of new neural interface trainees. "We changed how we think about advancement itself." The Valkyrie sought perfection through control and predictability. We showed them that true perfection lies in the ability to continuously adapt and evolve. Dr. Maya Patel's research expanded in new directions, exploring how neural interfaces could enhance human cooperation and creativity beyond anything previously imagined. The technology that had allowed pilots to merge with their ships was now helping humanity merge ideas, insights, and innovations in ways that accelerated advancement across all fields. Commander Hassan's swarm tactics evolved into new forms of organizational theory, showing how groups could maintain individual initiative while working toward collective goals. The principles that had allowed her pilots to coordinate complex battle maneuvers were adapted to help solve global challenges and coordinate space exploration efforts. The galaxy had entered a new era. The Valkyrie's crystal ships still patrolled space, but now they flew alongside swarms of human vessels and ships of other species, each contributing their unique strengths to a greater whole. The perfect formations had been replaced by organic patterns that represented a new understanding of progress and power. We thought we were fighting for survival, Admiral Wong reflected during the 10th anniversary of the Battle of Proxima Centauri. But we were actually fighting for something much more important, the right of all species to find their own path to advancement. The Velkhari thought they had reached the peak of evolution. We showed them that evolution has no peak. It's an endless journey of discovery and adaptation.